In Daniel's vision, this fifth horn, which would later grow from one of the four horns, would become great toward the south and east, and towards Israel itself. It would arrogantly challenge even the host of heaven and the prince of the host, and take away both the daily sacrifice by way of transgression and the sanctuary, the temple in Jerusalem, but only for a total of 2,300 days. Now, Gabriel explained that in the latter time of their kingdom, that's the four kingdoms, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences, that's basically understanding stratagems, double dealings, trickery, etc., shall stand up, and in his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy or practices also he shall cause craft, that's deceit and treachery, to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace, that's quietness, ease, prosperity, etc., shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Secular world history records that in 175 BC, that's over 3.5 centuries after Daniel's vision, in the Seleucid Empire, now that's one of the four kingdoms carved out from Alexander's empire after his death, one Antiochus Epiphanes ascended the throne after the death of his brother Seleucus IV. However, Antiochus was not the rightful heir to the throne. The throne rightfully belonged to Seleucus IV's 12-year-old son Demetrius, whom Antiochus had shipped off to Rome as a political hostage, as he himself had been for many years. Now, having gained a power that was not rightfully his own power, as Daniel prophesied foretold, Antiochus Epiphanes proved a master of manipulation and intrigue. Bribery, corruption, under the table and behind-the-scenes deals, public propaganda, etc., was his usual way of getting things done. He had a violent and vindictive nature, as well as an egotistical nature, in which he claimed to be the earthly manifestation of the Greek god Zeus, and demanded he be worshipped as such, even going so far as to erect statues of himself as Zeus, even in the temple. As foretold by Gabriel, in 169 BC, Antiochus took Egypt and Cyprus from the Ptolemy Empire, which is to the south, in retaliation for a previous attack. Now, Ptolemy's kingdom is one of the other four from the Alexander Empire. In 166 BC, however, the more powerful Rome forced him to give them back to Ptolemy. Now, in his anger, Antiochus turned his attention to Palestine and Jerusalem, as also foretold. It was the aim of Antiochus to totally destroy Hebrew culture and the Mosaic law and customs, and to assimilate Israel and Jerusalem fully into the Greek culture and religion, a process commonly referred to as Hellenization, Greek being known as the Hellenic culture. In 164 BC, while defending his eastern borders, again part of the Daniel's prophecy, he's being great towards the east, Antiochus fell ill and died, and in doing so again fulfilled the prophecies of Daniel by being broken without hand, basically meaning he died, but nobody killed him. Now, while Antiochus used the promises of prosperity, ease, and quietness of apparent peace to try and seduce the Jews into abandoning their laws and culture and adopting the Greek religion and culture, he encountered considerable resistance from certain sections of the Jewish nation, even while cultivating active support from other sections. Eventually, this led to the revolt of the Maccabees under the Jewish priest Mattathias, which is perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the fulfilment of the prophecies of the book of Daniel over 3.5 centuries earlier. For it is in the battle for the temple and the Jewish culture and law that we find the fulfilment of the prophecy about the 2,300 days, which is approximately 6 years, 3 months, and 18 days. Or, put it another way, 6 and a bit years. Shortly after usurping the throne in 175 BC, Antiochus removed the high priest and appointed his own high priest, a Levite interestingly named Yeshua, but who went by the Greek form of his name, Jason. Now, while initially sympathetic with the aims of Antiochus, Jason was nevertheless within the Mosaic law to accept the position of high priest because of his ancestry. However, in 171 BC, Antiochus ousted Jason in favour of another Jew called Menelaus, who offered Antiochus a lot more money for the position. The problem was that Menelaus was not of Levitical ancestry, and under the Mosaic law, the law of God, was not permitted to perform the role of a priest, let alone a high priest. The appointment of Menelaus in 171 BC was a grievous transgression of the Mosaic law, the law of God, and from that time onwards, the daily sacrifices were no longer acceptable to the Lord, and the sanctuary defiled by the presence of Menelaus. The daily sacrifices would remain unacceptable and the sanctuary defiled until certain ceremonies were performed under the Mosaic law to cleanse and rededicate the temple and the altar, etc. Now that did not happen until after the Maccabees recaptured Jerusalem and the temple in 165 BC. Now, remarkably, and I'd say miraculously, the Levitical priesthood performed the necessary ceremonies to cleanse and rededicate the temple, an event the Jews still celebrate as Hanukkah. Now, as with most ancient history, they don't deal particularly with dates in terms of months and days, but rather in terms of years. So it's difficult to pinpoint these events to precise days and months. But it should be noted that, remarkably, 165 BC is just 6 and a bit years after Menelaus caused the daily sacrifice to cease and the sanctuary to be taken away by transgression of the Mosaic law. Now, I'm quite certain that if more accurate data were available, or I could find it, we would find that it will be 6 years, 3 months, and 18 days. Or to put it another way, the 2,300 days of which Daniel spoke in his book over 3.5 centuries before. Now, all of these details are readily available on the net and in any reference library if you want to investigate for yourself. I will leave it to you to ponder the remarkable parallel between the prophecies of chapter 8 of the book of Daniel and the events of official world history that occurred 205 to 375 years after them, and what it tells us about the reality we live in. Remember, the Lord said, "I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me," declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. And the very reality you live in confirms this to be true, time and time again, with each fulfilled prophecy. The only question left is not, is it true? Reality has already well and truly answered that in the affirmative. The only question left is, what will you choose to do with the answer you already have? What will you do with the actual reality in which you live and breathe, work and play? A reality that confirms the existence of the Lord, but also His supreme power and authority over all things in it, including you and me, past, present, and future.